Lazarus's cognitive mediational theory. Lazarus's cognitive mediational theory is a psychological framework that explains how our emotions are closely linked to our thoughts. The theory suggests that emotions are not just automatic responses to events, but are shaped by how we interpret or evaluate those events. In other words, the way we think about a situation influences how we feel about it. This idea that our thoughts mediate or come between the event and our emotional response is central to the theory. The theory was developed by Richard Lazarus, a psychologist who focused on stress and emotion. According to Lazarus, when something happens to us, we go through a process of appraisal, which is a type of evaluation or judgment. There are two main stages of appraisal in this process: primary appraisal and secondary appraisal. Primary appraisal is the first step where we assess whether a situation is relevant to our well-being. We ask ourselves questions like, is this situation harmful, or does this affect me personally? If we think the event is significant or poses some kind of threat, our emotional response starts to form. For example, if you see a car speeding toward you, your primary appraisal might be, this is dangerous, and you'll feel fear. Secondary appraisal happens next. Here, we evaluate our ability to cope with the situation. We ask ourselves things like, what can I do about this, or do I have the resources to handle it? If we believe we can deal with the situation, our emotional response might be less intense. But if we think we're helpless, the emotional reaction can become stronger. Continuing the car example, if you see an escape route and think, I can jump out of the way, your fear may be lessened. But if you feel trapped, your fear will intensify. This two-step process shows how our emotions are influenced by the way we think about and interpret events, rather than just by the events themselves. It's not the event that directly causes an emotional response, but rather how we appraise or think about the event. The cognitive mediational theory is also important in understanding stress. Lazarus believed that stress comes from how we appraise situations as threatening or challenging, and how we evaluate our ability to cope with them. If we believe that an event is a threat and that we don't have the resources to handle it, we feel stressed. However, if we believe we can manage the situation, the stress will be reduced. This idea is key to managing stress, as it suggests that changing how we think about a situation can help us manage our emotional responses. An example of this theory in action can be seen in a common everyday scenario, like preparing for a public speaking event. The thought of speaking in front of a crowd might make someone anxious or nervous. According to Lazarus's theory, this anxiety is not just an automatic response to the event itself, but a result of the person's appraisal of the situation. If they view the event as threatening, perhaps worrying about making mistakes or being judged by the audience, their anxiety increases. However, if they appraise the event as an opportunity to share knowledge and connect with people, their emotional response might shift from anxiety to excitement or confidence. One important aspect of Lazarus's theory is that it acknowledges individual differences in emotional responses. People can react very differently to the same event based on how they appraise it. For instance, two people might lose their jobs. One person may appraise the situation as a disaster, leading to feelings of despair and frustration. The other might appraise the same event as an opportunity for a fresh start, resulting in feelings of hope and determination. This difference in emotional response stems from how each person interprets the event, which is central to the cognitive mediational theory. Lazarus also introduced the idea of coping strategies in response to stressful events. Coping strategies are the methods we use to deal with stress or emotional challenges. According to Lazarus, there are two main types of coping: problem-focused coping and emotion-focused coping. Problem-focused coping involves taking action to change or manage the situation causing the stress. For example, if someone is stressed about a looming deadline at work, problem-focused coping might involve creating a detailed plan to complete the tasks on time. Emotion-focused coping, on the other hand, involves trying to manage the emotional response to the situation rather than changing the situation itself. This might involve techniques like relaxation, seeking support from friends, or even reframing the situation to see it in a more positive light. For instance, if someone is feeling anxious about an upcoming exam, emotion-focused coping might involve deep breathing exercises or reminding themselves that they've prepared well and will do their best. Lazarus believed that both types of coping are important, but the most effective coping strategy depends on the situation. In some cases, it might be more helpful to focus on solving the problem directly, while in other cases, managing emotions might be the best approach. The cognitive mediational theory has practical implications in fields like therapy, stress management, and emotional regulation. Therapists often work with clients to help them reframe or reappraise situations in more constructive ways. By changing how people think about their experiences, therapists can help clients reduce negative emotional responses like anxiety, fear, or anger. For example, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is a widely used therapeutic approach that aligns with Lazarus's ideas. In CBT, clients learn to identify and challenge negative thought patterns and replace them with more realistic or positive appraisals. This shift in thinking can lead to changes in emotional responses and behavior, making it easier to cope with stressful situations. The theory also offers insight into how we can improve our emotional well-being in everyday life. By becoming more aware of how we appraise situations and practicing techniques to reframe our thoughts, we can learn to manage our emotions more effectively. Instead of reacting automatically to events, we can take a step back, evaluate the situation, and choose how we want to respond. In summary, Lazarus's cognitive mediational theory highlights the powerful role that our thoughts play in shaping our emotions. Rather than being automatic or purely instinctual, emotions are influenced by how we appraise and interpret events. This theory underscores the importance of cognitive processes in emotional responses and offers practical tools for managing stress, emotions, and life's challenges. By understanding and applying the principles of this theory, we can gain greater control over our emotional lives and develop healthier ways to cope with stress and adversity.